Hello my YouTubers and YouTubettes, my name is Get Good Potions and welcome to the channel. This video will be the first in my Vet Dungeon review series where we'll delve deep into the cracks and crevices of Tamriel to take a look at each Elder Scrolls Online dungeon and ultimately rate and review its various strengths, weaknesses, and quirks. For the purposes of this review, we will be taking a look at 6 different categories of the dungeon and giving each a rating, then determining an overall score for the dungeon as a whole. I will be looking at these from a newer or average player perspective, especially when it comes to difficulty. But stick around because I will also be adding another bonus category for the more seasoned veteran players toward the end of the video. But more on that later. Also, a slight disclaimer, this review is completely subjective and your opinion on this dungeon may vary slightly or significantly from mine, and that's okay. Just remember that nothing is set in stone. So without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, so, the first dungeon we'll be taking a look at today will be City of Ash 1. You'll find this dungeon located in Greenshade, right here on the map. When you first walk in, you'll find yourself above a waterfall with a path leading through a carved out tree dwelling and down to the bottom of the valley. Or you can plummet to the bottom yourself because who's got time for all that shit? Now you can get to the real action. Good old-fashioned difficulty. This dungeon doesn't have much in the way of a challenge for typical groups. Even newer players and people still getting used to coordinated groups should not run into many problems within this dungeon. The third boss, the Warden of the Shrine, shows its first difficulty spike while having to manage your limited space well, but should die quickly enough for you to not experience any problems. Though I will note, I have taken the plunge on this boss more than once and died to fall damage, and you can't be resurrected easily. So watch your footing. The last boss is the only one that poses any real problem, and that's because of his flame shot, but this can be trivialized by making sure you have a tank in the group. Even without one, 4 DPS can quickly take this guy down. The only thing that makes this fight tougher is the deceptively deep puddles in the arena. You will swim in these and lose control of your character when you fall in one, so make sure you get out ASAP. And that's why I'm rating the difficulty a 2 out of 5. Okay, so, the mechanics. Personally, my favorite part of any dungeon or raid in Elder Scrolls Online. Mechanics are very lackluster here, unfortunately. The majority of the bosses do the same basic attacks and AoE slams, with a few little flavor variants like the Infernal Guardian's fire missiles, Golor the Banekin Handler's Banekin summons, the Warden of the Shrine's residual fire AoE, the Dark Ember's growing fire eruption, and Rothariel's Flameheart's duplication. Most of these attacks can be avoided or DPS'd through, but the final boss adds a unique flavor to the mix. His typical archer shots will hit like normal, but his heavy archer shot will add an extremely damaging flame dot, or damage over time, and can easily kill you if you don't pay attention. Adds will summon and cannot be moved from the spots they choose to stay, so you have to DPS them down quickly. But as discussed earlier, the most interesting mechanic is an environmental hazard where as you chase the teleporting boss, you can potentially fall into the deceptively deep puddles and lose control of your ability to dodge, heal, attack, or really do anything but swim. I give this a 3 out of 5. And this is where the dungeon truly shines. The feeling of walking into this burning city and almost being able to taste the soot in your throat makes this dungeon stand out among the rest. The non-linear design of this dungeon creates this feel that it's truly a city and not, well, a dungeon. Your view distance is cut down significantly due to the intense gray soot dancing in the air. The dev teams did a phenomenal job shading this area and making the red-hot lighting in this area feel like you're actually there. Have to give this one, without a doubt, a 5 out of 5. I know what you're thinking.
Well, Get Good Potions, I don't really care about the story in the dungeon.
Listen, hear me out, okay? While some people don't really care about the story in the Elder Scrolls Online dungeons, and they want to get right into the action, others might want to soak up every little detail they can to give some context to where they are and what they're doing. By the way, slight spoiler alert for those who haven't done this dungeon yet and care about the quests and the story here. Now, stopping the Daedric threat from a cultist that separated the city from the Aldmeri Dominion seems plain and boring enough, but the introduction of the characters, Gilrayan and her injured husband Finganian, sets up a nice segue into the second half of the story in City of Ash 2. You get a speech from Mehrunes Dagon at the end as he whisks away Gilrayan, leaving her husband to vow to return and figure a way to rescue his wife from the clutches of a Daedric prince, and seeks to find a means to enter the Badlands. It's a very good story. I do have to give this a 3 out of 5, but only because the basic premise of the dungeon isn't really that unique. Alright, so if we're being honest with ourselves here, this is the reason that we're even in this dungeon in the first place. Let me just say, the loot from this dungeon is near perfect, offering sets for a wide variety of builds, and in some cases, can actually be best in slot for certain builds. First on the list is Burning Spellweave, an older set that is seeing some more limelight now. Still a powerful set, and while not the end-all be-all of the Magicka DPS meta from the old days, it still holds its value when used with a Dragon Knight and, in some cases, even Sorks. Sunderflame is an essential raiding set for stamina-based raid groups and is a must-have for any coordinated gameplay. It can be a very potent and powerful set when used properly, but farming the weapons can be a huge pain in the ass. Luckily, with transmutation introduced recently, this can be dumbed down significantly. However, no significant unique weapon drops are available from this dungeon to transmute. The only weapon you can get for Burning Spellweave, for example, is a healing staff. Ember Shield is a huge disappointment and the only reason I can't give it a perfect score to this section. It has little to no uses in many applications except for the sake of fun, and this is the only droppable set in this dungeon that is not worth picking up. Maybe this is just me, but I seem to get Ember Shield a lot, and I mean a lot. I still have to shed my PTSD sometimes when thinking back to those Burning Spellweave farms I did in previous batches. Now on to the monster set, the Infernal Guardian Monster Helm. A very versatile set for Magicka builds, actually, especially in PvP and Vet Maelstrom Arena, being used to kite and damage at the same time. If you don't have this set in your arsenal and you play Magicka, especially against other players, seriously, what are you doing with your life? And because of Ember Shield, I can't give this a 5-star rating, which means I have to leave it with a 4 out of 5. So, not much to say here. This dungeon is a breeze to run through. The great drops make it a solid place to farm, and the low health pools of all the bosses make this dungeon one of the smoothest grinds in the game. I mean, come on. What other atmosphere can you see yourself spending hours in, grinding out gear, and still enjoy the scenery? Gotta give this one a 5 out of 5. Remember when I said veteran players will enjoy this review? This is where we come to the bonus review, the ultimate challenge for veteran players. Soloing vet dungeons is a pastime that I, among many other veteran players in the community, particularly enjoy. I am a huge fan of the Dark Souls and Bloodborne games, and nothing in this game feels quite like that rush of going toe-to-toe with a monster that can kill you in a hit or two. This is truly for veteran players trying to challenge themselves, though. For this section, I will not be basing my overall score on solo difficulty, nor will I be giving it a rating, but if you enjoy more hardcore content and giving yourself that extra spike in difficulty, this is where it is. City of Ash 1 is doable. Most bosses, while long, do not pose much of a threat. Just make sure you stick to that Dark Souls way and dodge those telegraphs and spank that booty. Most bosses shouldn't pose much of a threat, but the final boss is very difficult. You will absolutely need to dodge every last charged fire shot because handling that heavy dot and pelting attack from the adds and the boss is devastating. If you can, try to focus the adds down because the damage will add up, but make sure you always have your camera on the boss in case he decides to heavy shot you. Getting damage in is rough in here because he loves to teleport, so expect a very slow fight. Whatever you do, you need to avoid the swimmable pools. If you find yourself in one, you most likely will die extremely quickly. In this fight, you need to make absolutely zero mistakes. I died again and again and again to this boss, and ultimately didn't even finish it. But with enough practice and perseverance, you and I will both be able to take down this flamboyant archer. Oh, and a quick word, if you're interested on soloing dungeons, you can find specific builds and ability bar setups that are geared towards just that. All you need to do is Google or YouTube it. I mainly use stamina DPS for this, but Magicka might fare a little bit better here. Let me know if you've had any better luck with a Magicka solo build down in the comment section below. And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. City of Ash 1 rated a 3.6 out of 5. While this dungeon does suffer from a low overall difficulty and mainly bland mechanics, it does make up for it with a slightly compelling story, absolutely beautiful aesthetics, and an interesting level design. The loot and ease of completion makes for one of the better grinds in the game, and I'm sure most players hunting for best in slot gear have been through this place a lot, just like me. And there you have it. Thank you for watching, everyone. This is my first video in the series, so I'd really like to know what you guys thought in the comment section below, as well as some of your tales of heroism or horror stories from this dungeon. Like the video if you liked anything I had to say, and be sure to smash that subscribe button for more content like this. Keep gaming, everyone. This is Get Good Potions, logging off.